Welcome to the Microcast, the short-form podcast from Microcosm Coaching, where we break down the science, strategy, and psychology behind smarter endurance training. Each week, we tackle a key concept in running, training, or recovery, and we give you practical tools you can apply right away, whether you're building back, leveling up, or chasing down a big goal. We keep it short, evidence-based, and grounded in real coaching experience. No hype, no fluff, just actionable insights to help you train sustainably and perform at your best. Let's get into it.
All right, we're back.
We're back.
You're just freshly back from a run.
I finished running mere moments ago.
How do you feel?
I felt good until I saw myself in the webcam. So that's where I'm at.
You know, at least you got out there. You got your training done.
I did. It was 90 degrees, and I felt every ounce of it.
I haven't left the dhouse yet today, so
yeah,
I have no like.
Didn't you do a little mindfulness dog walk?
That was the morning.
Okay,
that was a long time ago. That was 4 athlete calls ago. That was a lifetime ago.
Yeah, you were a different man, and you were a younger man.
A naff ago.
Yeah,
totally.
Maybe let's not bury the lead. We have a super exciting show to talk about today. Yeah. We're going to talk about mostly the Leadville 100, because we are going to get into the good, the bad, the ugly. We have great news in that a microcosm athlete, McKendree Hickory, won Leadville.
Yeah.
Your athlete won.
She won.
The Leadville 100.
She did. It's awesome.
That is freaking sick.
Yeah.
How are you feeling, Coach?
I feel good about it, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. She worked really hard for that result. And, you know, I can't claim to have been like the sole person responsible for that.
She is the one that ran the race.
She ran the race. I've only been working with her for 5 months. But I do think like the work that we did in preparation for the race really made a big difference. I'm excited to talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's really clear takeaways for all athletes when looking at how to train specifically for a certain event and really utilize your strengths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on the tougher side, you also ran Leadville.
I did.
DNF.
I ran part of Leadville.
You ran the Leadville 50. Non-Silver Rush 50.
I walked the Leadville 50.
You walked the Leadville 50.
That was fun.
So it wasn't. That's okay. We contain multitudes. So we're going to have an honest chat about the DNF, you know, because
definitely.
I think that's the really beautiful and also heinous thing about the sport is it contains both ends of that spectrum.
Totally.
You know, like what's the thing they always say, like from the
two sides of the same coin?
What is it? The high of victory to the agony of defeat.
It was agonizing.
Yes.
I can admit that.
So we're going to talk about all things good, bad, and ugly about the Leadville 100 this weekend, but again, through the framework of what other people can do in their training, and, you know, what to know about the mental side of things, physical training, all of that. But we wanted to start with a listener question as a warm up.
All right. Hey guys, love the pod. Been listening for a while. Background. I've always been pretty lousy at pacing, particularly on my hard days. Who isn't? I've been doing a fall and spring marathon for several years now. PR has dropped from 4:30 to 3:24. Wow, that's epic.
That's sick.
Great job.
Reach out. This is awesome.
Love hearing that.
Yeah.
Now I'm gunning for a BQ time of 3:15.
Wow, dream big. That's awesome.
Yeah. Minus a buffer is probably 3:09 pace. That's the target. Okay. I mean, that's pretty significant from 3:24, but okay, we'll get into that. I have found this training block that I'm able to lock in, as my kids would say, doing tempo and intervals on the treadmill and hit the prescribed paces and rests. Outside or on the track, I'm often struggling to do that. Am I delusional thinking I'm getting adequate training challenges on the treadmill?
Ooh, I love this question. And I feel this in a deep way because I feel like I have these same challenges and have also found the treadmill to be a helpful tool. But I guess like my little coaching 10 cents is that I mean, running on the treadmill is running. You know, there's going to be some limitations. Like if you're trying to train for hard rock on the treadmill, that's not going to be great. Not all that specific. Trying to train for Boston might be additionally hard because you're not going to be able to mimic the downhills of that course.
True.
But it's a solid start, like in terms of less specific training, which things like VO2 max are. So, I also struggle. Like, I am a slow twitch athlete. I'm a 100-mile girly. I struggle with speed work. And I have found that in doing stuff on the treadmill, I'm able to like set the pace, commit to it, and pace more evenly than I have outside. That being said, I've really tried to use the treadmill with like using it as an on ramp to more honest outdoor pacing, because ultimately I am racing outdoors and not on the treadmill, and learning to pace is also a skill.
Yeah.
So you don't want to like not obtain that skill to the detriment of your overall fitness. Like, you don't want to be like, well, I suck at pacing, so I'm just not going to gain fitness. I think it's helpful to use the treadmill to both gain fitness and gain competency at pacing. Your thoughts?
I totally agree with that. Excuse me. Sorry. I really think that this athlete has a great tool and an opportunity to continue to hone in on things, but ultimately the race is raced outside. The treadmill does give a little bit of biomechanical assist with the take back portion of the stride, because the belt is moving underneath you.
Yeah.
The belt moves your foot back. And so that makes it a little bit easier and slightly more efficient, which is why I would recommend getting out and practicing running outside, because there are going to be some neuromuscular differences there that are important for efficiency in the marathon. You can adequately train on the treadmill. Many of our athletes do that. I would recommend for the speed work that you use a 1 or 2% incline. I think that can help make it feel slightly more realistic to running outside. I also like, one of the maybe the downsides of the treadmill is we don't have like the turns, the wind, the terrain changes, the pacing decisions that we have to make, like set it and forget it on the treadmill is often really helpful. But then I would like to see this athlete take that calibration and the internalized RPE that they get from those sessions and then bring that outside and try to mimic it in the real world, in the elements. Like Boston is historically a tough race with weather, the up and down nature of the race, climbing at the end. All of that should be practiced, especially if you want to, hit a 309 down from, like, I think his PR was 324. I mean, that's a pretty significant, again, another really significant jump. And that's only going to come from increased fitness gains and like pretty smart, competent training.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that, you can use the treadmill as a tool, but you don't want it to become your only way of executing productive workouts. But I think it's a great on-ramp. And like we've talked about many times on this podcast, you and I are both a huge fan of the treadmill for being able to train more consistently when environmental conditions are tough, when there's smoke, when there's snow, rather than trying to do a shitty workout on ice or, risking long-term health with bad AQI. Treadmill. Love it.
Love the treadmill for all of that.
Yeah.
Maybe one other thing specific to this athlete that I think is worth, recognizing. I don't exactly know what you're doing for your interval training, but make sure that if you're targeting 309 pace on the treadmill, you're doing that for very long intervals.
Yes.
Marathon pace is much more of an easy, moderate pace, 6 to 7 out of 10 RPE. You're accumulating lactate, but not a lot. It's enough to process. It's that like kind of gray area pacing, honestly. And to practice and get better at that, you really need to do very long interval sessions. So 15, 20, 30, 40, 45, 60-minute long bouts at that effort in order to really get ready to run that pace on race day. Short intervals at that pace isn't really going to help meaningfully change your fitness. Now, you could do shorter intervals to improve your threshold, which will improve your overall, fitness. But when it gets down to it, you should probably be spending, I don't know, for this event, something this specialized, maybe 6 to 8 weeks working on that marathon pace and really dialing that in. And I would probably, if this was my athlete, have them doing something like a 16 to 20-week long build for this to
Love
just
a
so they're
20-week build.
really dialed in and ready to go, getting all those systems nailed.
Yeah. Amazing. Love
it. Yeah.
All right. And now for something completely different, running 4 marathons back to back at 10,000 feet.
Oh, God.
Where do you want to start, coach?
Well, let's start with my day.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about, McKendree and her training.
Maybe walk us through your day.
I think the best place to start is maybe like the week of the race, honestly. Man, I felt really confident going into this race. I didn't just have self-efficacy, which is the belief in my ability to run a strong race based on actual data that I could do that, based on actual evidence. My training logs, the 15-hour training weeks that I averaged for this, the 100+ mile weeks. Like, I actually had confidence. Like, I felt good. Like, the difference between confidence and self-efficacy is confidence is very feeling based. Like, that's emotion. Emotions change all the time.
It's a vibe.
Right. It's a vibe, which is why we don't want to fully rely on confidence. Because if I wake up and I'm not confident, then maybe I psych myself out for the race.
Like, I didn't listen to the right playlist. I didn't wear my lucky socks. Yeah, we're not about that. We're about like specifically building your ability to rise to challenges with intentional stimulus during training.
Yeah.
That's self-efficacy.
Exactly. And it's really important to know the difference between those things. But if you have confidence, by all means, use it.
Also great. Bring that.
Bring it.
It's like you don't want to bank on it, know?
Exactly. It's not something, that should be part of the foundation of, your mental game going into a race. This is something that, is like a cherry on top.
Yeah.
In the, when it's 2:30 in the morning and you're making your espresso and about to head to the start line. It's like, if you're feeling good, sweet.
Yeah. It's like having a good hair day. It's a bonus, but like, you don't want to coast on that.
No. But man, I had like a really good week going into the race. I didn't self-sabotage myself by working too much. I took
Would you feel comfortable
off.
Just touching on that briefly? Because I feel like that's something I see with athletes of like not setting themselves up for race week success, like either intentionally or maybe unintentionally, just like not clearing the decks, not setting themselves up in a way that sometimes I think can be related to, again, either like at the top of their brain or maybe buried deeper down, an unwillingness or a discomfort with getting vulnerable and opening yourself up to failure. Whereas if you just like, don't do the carb load, don't, manage your stress well, don't get good sleep intentionally or whatever, you just like don't like own your shit, you're not getting vulnerable because it's just going to be bad. So
totally.
Could you speak to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's critical. One of the most important components of that is kind of having enough banked mental bandwidth, a deep well of mental bandwidth that you can manage whatever the inevitable adversity is that happens at the race. And this is true for any distance.
Yeah.
But 100 miles is a whole different beast. You're not dealing with adversity for a few miles or a few hours. You could be dealing with adversity for 12, 15 hours for 50 miles, like a whole day. So in order to manage that, you have to have the banked bandwidth to do that, which means you have to set yourself up for success, which is hard for a lot of people. It was really hard for me for a number of years to take time off of work to tell athletes, like, I'm not responding to your emails or reviewing your training during this period. Like, it took me years to develop like enough self-esteem, I guess, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And a strong enough identity or sense of self to do that. And I felt really good about how I did that. It's so vital.
Boundaries serve everyone in a relationship.
Totally. It makes a really a good difference. Like it makes you more relaxed. It made me more relaxed. I think something that I have typically slipped into in the past is like, well, I will, maybe set those boundaries and then not uphold them.
Yeah.
Like people will reach out to me for things that are not important. And then I'll engage in those things, or there will be business stuff. Cause I don't just coach, I'm running an entire business. There's, there's 10 total employees at Microcosm, including coaches and people who have different operating roles with the company, and trying to just not self-sabotage and set all that aside. And, that it's necessary, but it's not that easy to do. And sometimes we don't even recognize that we're doing that. And then we get to the race and it's like, oh my God, I don't have the bandwidth to deal with this. So I'm going to DNF.
Yeah.
Man, it's crazy. Like I did really well with that.
Amazing.
And
I love that.
That was like one of your roles. I remember going into the race, I was like, race week, I was like, don't let me self-sabotage. If you see me,
I was going to take your phone away
doing something that I shouldn't be doing, that's going to like take away from my mental stop me, get in the way of that, like get in there. And oh man, it just feels so good to be able to like do that and execute that well. I hope to carry that on into, future races. I try to like take the time off that I feel is necessary for the length of the event, And one of the stupid things about Leadville, I will say, is they have a really dumb mandatory meeting.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of meetings.
Is like 90 minutes long, and then you have to go to the expo and get your packet, and that's a whole thing. And then there's like, going and dropping your drop, and it's like all of a sudden your Friday, half of the day you're like out and about doing on your feet, driving places, listening to people, doing stuff, and you're not really resting.
Yeah.
And I felt like I did a really good job of like, okay, set the boundaries, step back, rest. Okay, have the crew meeting, rest. And I went in feeling really good. Like I actually slept pretty well. Amazing. The night before. I woke up with really good energy. I felt good on the start line, and the gun went off, and folks go out fast.
Yes.
Who should just simply not be running that fast.
I try to not make my whole personality getting second at Leadville, but like the year I got second at Leadville, I was like 70th at May Queen.
Right. Yeah.
I'm, that means I passed 65 people.
Right.
Like there's so many people that are just going entirely not pacing from a place of self-awareness and data.
Yeah. I mean, obviously there are.
Those are people who are in a place of confidence and not self-efficacy.
Totally.
Like that's I put on the right playlist, my lucky socks, and I'm having a good hair day. I'm about to make some reckless decisions out here.
And obviously like the top men, many of them go out that fast and are totally fine, but they're working within the proper limits of their physiology. Rather there's folks that just are not. And that always blows my mind. Like you see that a lot of at UTMB races.
Adrian McDonald, who won, was in like fifth halfway, maybe. Like he was at fifth, maybe going into Twin Lakes. He moved up on Hope Pass and gained first place in Twin Lakes.
Wow, and he really put a strong gap.
Yes, he did.
In those,
and the guy who led for most of the race did not complete the race.
Huh. Interesting.
Fascinating.
I mean, it's not that surprising. I wish people would run with less ego and run smarter. But also I DNF'd this race. I also have been one of the athletes who, has been within the top, 5 or 6 coming back over Hope Pass at this race, and only finished like, I don't know, inside the top 20 because I slowed down so much the first time I did this. So I had a lot of that in my head actually starting this race. And one of my big things that I worked on with my coach was like pacing discipline.
Yeah.
And having like really specific splits to follow, because with the change in the course and everything, like it's very easy to just know what paces you should run.
Yeah.
And you can rely on that because
it's kind of a gravel race to start.
It was on a lot of like dirt road and things like that. I enjoy that kind of running. It was perfect for me. But I noticed for me, I had issues like right away in this race. My like pace cap for the downhill start was 7:50,
Yeah.
which was more than a minute per mile slower than the first time I started this race. It's really conservative. My pace cap the last time I did the race was like 6:45. So it was,
different,
really playing the long game, but I couldn't, that effort, 7:50 going downhill, that effort felt more like 6 out of 10 RPE than what it should have felt like with my physiology. And I knew almost immediately like something's going on with my respiratory system. And that kind of sucks, but like I ignored it. And I backed off my pace actually. I dropped down to 8:15, about 8:15 pace. And we were, running for a while, and I thought that felt pretty comfortable. But then pretty soon, like that felt like more moderate. And I was like, oh, that's not good. And by the time I was like, the sun had risen and it was like 2.5 hours into this race, I was actually physically struggling to run like a 10-minute mile.
Which is not
That's
typical.
not good. Like that's really bad for me. Like
so
I could typically run a 10-minute mile at like a 104 heart rate. And I was running that at like 140 heart rate.
So, maybe to zoom out just a little bit to like sort of give folks additional context. I'm curious, like, again, spoiler alert, we noted that you had DNF'd at Winfield. What were the conversations in your head when you were like, you realized this was like not a great day, right? Like you and I always talk about like, you don't get to stop races because you're not having a good day, right?
Oh, dude, I hate
we're
it
committed
having
to doing these races.
Yeah.
Even when you're like, oh shoot, I'm not going to be on the podium. I'm not going to get the result I want. That's not why we do these. We do these to learn things about ourselves. And there are still times where you don't need to continue because of risk to long-term health and well-being. So I'm just like curious what the conversation in your head looks like.
It was a confusing conversation. Like it was actually really, the whole thing took me by surprise, to be very honest. Like I kind of had this really active cough throughout the week. Productive cough. I don't know. I was coughing and stuff was coming up out of my lungs.
I wasn't loving it. Gonna be real.
Not a great color. I just was like, oh, I cough all the time. I've had these weird respiratory things, but I feel pretty good. Like I feel pretty fine. Let me just put that to the side. And when I saw you guys at Marathon 26, and I was like, I feel horrible. Like, this is the worst I've ever felt in a race. I can't breathe. I can't barely even run. Like, and we were like, okay, just figure it out. My whole thing was like, you gotta just deal with it. Like, this is the cards you were dealt. And
I was just thinking, like, if you kept eating and drinking, you would warm up, like something would change.
Me too.
There was still a little bit of smoke in the air. I was wondering if your asthma was irritated. So I was like, just take care of him and get him out of the aid station and he'll be fine. Like, things almost never suck for that long in an ultra.
I totally was like, I just got to keep going. Like, I'll work through this. Like, it's just taking you longer to warm up than is typical or whatever. And I kind of like had that like rational discussion where like part of you is like, you don't feel good. This is like totally abnormal. And then another part of you is like, well, these are the cards you're dealt. You can work through this.
Right. Cause like I've definitely had races where I didn't feel amazing for a solid portion.
Totally. And I mean, that's like, again, that's why we have the mental wealth. So we can manage that.
And even at Leadville, when I got second, I got the sickest I've ever gotten around 50K because of dehydration and ended up yakking into a ravine. And, coming into Twin Lakes, maybe a little behind where I wanted to be.
Right.
But then I was able to put the surge on.
There's so much race ahead of you when you're at mile 26 and not feeling your best. And I remember like taking off my pack and handing it to you guys and just running with a single flask for like 4 or 5 miles to the next aid station. I remember like, wow, this feels a lot better. Like it's so nice to not have that weight on me. Wow, that's really interesting. Like, okay, cool. And felt pretty good and was like, only like 15 minutes back off my splits. At that point, I was like, yeah, that's totally like manageable. We can make that up later, and or like it doesn't matter. Like a part of me was like, you train for like the durability at mile 70.
Right.
So like if you can just do this pace until mile 70, you're still gonna have a solid day.
Yeah.
So just like keep going. Who cares that you're running slower than you wanted to?
Right.
Like, okay.
Cardio always.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, you train to be durable. So like you'll just run this pace and won't slow down. Great. Awesome. Like it's still going to be a solid day. But again, like I just felt really bad. And as soon as I put the pack on again, at 50K, when I saw you guys at Pipeline, which is this little unofficial crew spot, I love that they have that. There's just such long sections in this race without aid and you don't see crew, and then you're kind of just running on a road through a forest. So it's like really nice to see people. I putting that pack on, I was like, damn, this thing feels like it's 100 pounds. And I mean, it was a lighter pack than I trained in 95% of my long runs. Like it was just so weird. So anyways, I did actually enjoy throwing up before getting into Twin Lakes.
Yep. Good place to throw up.
That was...
I feel like many people have probably yacked on that section of trail.
Totally. Man, and getting down into Twin Lakes, this is where like, I just feel disappointed in myself. Like, and it's just tough to like look back at the race and it's like, well, I kept trying to work through feeling like shit, but I was not prepared at all to feel as bad as I felt so early in this race. And in the back of my mind, I knew how I felt at Leadville 2023. And I knew that I had 3 more years of really consistent training. And a lot more volume in this build. And I just could not stop thinking about that. And I used like every mental tool that I know. And I could not get it out of my head. And it really mentally affected me. That I was performing so much worse than the first time I did this race, which is also my first 100.
Which can be a blessing and a curse, because you're like, woohoo, I feel great. That's totally good. I expect that this feeling will last forever.
And I'm kind of disappointed in the way like I approached and managed that when I got to see you guys in Twin Lakes. Like I was not who I wanted to be in that moment. And like we talk a lot, and we'll talk about like McKendree's way of being and how we worked to establish that, and how that was a really critical piece to her race. I also do that kind of work for myself, establishing like who I want to be in the race, particularly at specific moments. When it's hard, when you're experiencing adversity. And one of the things is like always for me, I want to remain cool and calm. And I just could not remain cool and calm. For me, I was freaking the fuck out. I was totally overwhelmed by how bad I felt. And I definitely didn't think that it would be possible for me to complete the race at that point. I already knew that at that point, because I hadn't that 10-mile section between Pipeline and Twin Lakes, like it just got worse. Nothing got better. I just knew like, okay, you've been out here for 8 hours and 6 of those hours have been really bad. It's unlikely that that's going to change now. And I just wanted to rush out. I didn't want to I was also having really bad piriformis pain that developed during that section, and that like shooting nerve pain that I get that's associated with this because of sciatica. I didn't even want to admit to you guys that like,
Yeah.
not only could I not breathe, but like I was like actually in really significant pain. Cause like I think to admit that, like, I don't know, I would have had to like stop and address that in a way that just didn't like work for my psychology in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I wanted to just get going
Yeah.
and try to get to like the top of Hope Pass rather than like do what my coach was telling me was like, let's just reset. Like, this is a moment to reset. And it's like, no, I'm already like, I should have been here an hour ago. I feel horrible. I don't want to like sit and problem solve this shit. I want to just like go out there and fix it.
Yeah.
And probably like in hindsight, like I maybe could have relaxed a little bit and like took it easy. Like I was definitely not who I wanted to be. It's really disappointing for me to look back and be like, the most important thing is to be who I want to be in the race, even if I don't get the results I want.
But we do these things to stretch and grow that capacity, not to flawlessly execute on that capacity.
It's true. I have a very high standard for myself, though. I tend to do very well with that component. And I was able to almost immediately acknowledge that I wasn't executing on that part. And that brought forth a lot of like inner criticism, honestly, that I hadn't really experienced in a race in a number of years. The universe will teach you that you don't fully have these things mastered.
Yeah.
It'll find a way, right, to show you like, okay, you still need to work on this stuff. And hey, it's a good opportunity for that. But to me, that's the biggest disappointment.
So
it's hard to sometimes talk about it.
For sure. But I think it's helpful because we're also obviously humans.
Yeah.
And we struggle with this shit also. And, I never feel like we owe people discussion if we're not ready to have it in a public arena. But when it does feel okay to have, and it does feel like it can serve other people, I think that it's beneficial to walk towards that, honestly. So
yeah, no, it's hard, but it's not, I think it's appropriate to discuss because it's something that we talk a lot about on this podcast is knowing who you want to be in the hard moments and working to, live into that version of yourself. And that process is not a linear process.
And if you get it 100% right all the time, I'd say aim higher.
Yeah. Like you should, like, that's a really good point. You should think about,
if you're always exactly the person you want to be, like, maybe you can be a better person.
Right. Like what is the next level that you should be, looking to rise to?
So you made it over Hope Pass. You got down to Winfield.
The most harrowing climb of my life. I was like, first of all, this is ridiculous. My poles broke.
It was a tough day out there.
Dude, I couldn't get I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced their Lakey poles not being able to come out.
To telescope out?
Yeah, they're like stuck.
Oh.
And that's a pretty steep climb without poles.
It's not that fun without poles.
It's fine if you're like just doing an out and back.
Particularly
10
the backside is not fun without poles.
I hate doing that kind of hiking without poles, and especially with the sciatica pain, like being able to offset some of like the stress on my legs to my upper body is pretty critical. So like I wasn't able to do that. Only one pull worked. And I tried to just do one pull for a while, and that just like made one side of my back hurt.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, screw this.
Yeah.
I'll put my pulls away and I'll, hike like I used to, hands on knees. And it made my sciatica flare up so bad. And I hadn't had issues with this in my training at all.
Yeah.
It really pissed me off.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you got to just like move towards this discomfort. Like you got to surrender to that. Like this is what you're experiencing. You don't be in denial of it, or like, don't be in confrontation with that. That's just going to make it worse. It's like, I'm in pain. And it's like bad. It's like 7, 8 out of 10 pain.
Yeah.
So it's like shooting up my entire legs. finally it took me 2 hours to get to the aid station.
Yeah.
Which is
also not
at an
brutal.
easy effort. It's like, under 90 minutes.
Right.
It was crazy. They got me pliers. This guy was so nice.
Oh no.
I was like, listen, the most important thing is I can get these poles to work.
Yeah.
And he went to his tent, which was like 100 yards away, came back with a pair of pliers and forced the poles open.
There you go.
So then I was
both of them?
Well, yeah.
Were stuck?
Yeah.
That's so bad.
And then he got them open. I filled up. I got to the top and I was like, it took me like an hour just to do that section it just felt like an eternity from the aid station to the top.
Yeah.
And I swear I got passed by 200 people.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my God, what is going on? What was really cool though, is I got to the top at exactly the same time that the front runners in the men's race were coming
That's awesome.
down.
Yay.
And I got to see those guys and cheer them on. And that was like a really bright spot in my day. And then I had to like gather myself because like, I was like, all right, I'm going to get to Winfield and like, that's going to be the decision point. For me, I'm not walking in hundreds.
Yeah.
I've done that. It's cool. I finished a 100-mile race. I know what it feels like to have to take 2 months to recover because you're out there all freaking night. I don't do that. I'm not interested in that. So I was like, if I can't figure this out by the time I get to Winfield, I'll call it a day.
Because like this had been something it wasn't like you had 4 difficult miles, you had 48 difficult miles.
This was hours and hours.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I was 10 hours in when I got to the top.
Right. And I'm just trying to express that there's a difference between a low point and all the points being low.
I hope that's abundantly clear.
Well, I think it's important to differentiate.
Well, totally. Because if you're an athlete who's experiencing that, consider your long-term health and well-being.
Right.
That's why I have this really strict, now that I've got a couple hundreds under my belt, I'm trying to pursue this at a level where it's like, I feel good about the way I'm finishing.
Mm-hmm.
Of course it's going to be hard. Of course I'm going to walk. Like I was run walking literally 4 hours into this race.
Right.
Like it is.
Right. Anyway, so you make the decision to drop.
Yes.
That's obviously really hard. How are you feeling a couple days out?
No, it's totally the right decision because I haven't barely been sleeping since getting home. I've been coughing up a lung every day. Something is like clearly I have a respiratory infection or something. Like I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But looking forward to getting in to see a doctor really soon. And I don't know, like I had so much fun training for this race.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking about is like, oh my gosh, can I go out and run again soon?
Mm-hmm.
How soon can I get back on the trails and just run? Because it's fun. It's awesome to do that. And it is really disappointing to not like perform well at the race.
Right.
And especially like the way this year has gone, like I was like, oh, I'm finally getting over all the stuff that was holding me back, all the family stress and the health stuff earlier in the year with my breathing. It's like, no, now it's back. And it's like, there is a frustration, but that's just part of the game. Not every race is going to be rainbows and unicorns.
Right. But it is hard when it's something you train for you've been working on this for 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's tough. So like, how are you moving forward? What advice do you I DNF'd Leadville the first time I tried to run it. And then, it took 6 years to come back.
Right.
I have DNF'd Western States, which was really hard because I had a sponsor bib for that and I don't know how or when or why I'll get back in. And then I've also DNF'd Never Summer. I did go back and win that one. So I have a pretty good track record of once I get back, I figure my shit out. But
dude, I am
hard,
in the inverse of that. And that is very difficult.
Unsent it. No, but how do you navigate that discomfort, disappointment? Where are you at? What advice do you have?
I think, the best way to navigate that is to just feel every aspect of it. Don't push anything down. If you're feeling like, for me, if I'm feeling disappointed, feel that, write it out, talk about it with somebody. If there's frustration, that's what I'm feeling right now. I'm frustrated because I haven't had a race that I felt I ran to my potential in 2 years.
Yeah.
That is alarming for me.
Yeah.
Just like, even to say that, I feel frustrated.
Yeah.
Because I've put in a lot of time and work. And not all of that work has been fun, but like, I think that the thing that I'm grappling with the most is like, this day was void of like joy. It was not fun at all. It was horrible. It was being with a horrible sensation for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Basically. It just got worse and worse. And I know for me, it's a great learning experience because I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in having experiences that are like that for that long. Like, I would prefer to have more experiences that are joyful. I was really looking forward to like that feeling when you get over the top of Hope Pass the second time and you're grinding out that really steep climb and it's like hot and you're sweating and you're like, oh my God, when will this end? This is so hard. And you finally like, get to the runnable switchbacks, the top, and you can jog it and like, then you're heading down. And this is like, I remember that so much from my first race. I don't know. Like I feel disappointed that didn't happen.
It wasn't the day you wanted at any point.
No. And I think you got to just feel that.
Yeah.
Even before, like, I'm having this conversation, feeling these things before I even debrief this with my coach.
Yeah. So it's pretty raw.
I don't feel raw.
Fresh?
Yeah, it's fresh. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
And I hope that, like, I don't know, in talking about it, like maybe that like validates that experience for other people. Because I know that there was a lot of other people who were having really hard days. I was in a van with a guy who, took a really bad fall and did something to his back and had to DNF.
Yeah.
There were people DNFing on the Twin Lakes side, throwing up, and, other people who were dealing with adversity. And like, there's a part of me that's like, got to keep the door open. Even if it's just a little crack where the light can come in, I want to, go towards that light and see like, what can we do to make this better?
Yeah.
Whether that's figuring out if there's some underlying condition I have with my respiratory system or whatever, it's a nervous system issue. Like, why do I keep having this sciatica stuff is a really important thing for me to answer. I've been trying to answer it for 2 years, but here we are still having the conversation. Maybe it's aging, I'm about to be 40. I don't know. Just put it all out there. It's more questions than answers, but sometimes that's where you're at and it's like, okay to be there.
Yeah. Well, that was a tough day, but
Yeah, it was. But I did get to see McKendree at, I don't know what mileage it was for her. I think she was probably like at around mile 54. Cause I was still a little ways out from Winfield, probably like a mile or two out. And she was coming back up and she was in fourth and she was 34 minutes back from first place. And she stopped and we had a quick little exchange and I could just tell she was having a really solid day.
She was locked in
and she was really focused. And, something for me also kind of like brightened up in that moment to see, one of your athletes who is clearly like executing their race well. And we ran a little bit together early in the race. And I could see she was feeling good. Like, I was breathing pretty heavy. She was running the hills very easily.
Yeah.
It was just really like I was seeing her kind of connecting the dots and starting to execute the plan that we talked about. And that was awesome.
Yeah. So let's maybe back you've been working there for, almost 6 months going into Leadville. How long have you guys been training specifically for this? And was it always her goal to win? And how did that shape the approach?
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting. We never explicitly said you can win this race
Mm-hmm.
or, the goal is to win.
Mm-hmm.
I think the goal was always to have a race where she lived into her way of being.
And
And
with maybe the unexpressed specific understanding that McKendree firing on all McKendree cylinders is a Leadville win. In many circumstances, you never know what other people are doing, but
well, it was a little bit more expressed than that.
okay.
It was like, if you do these things, you're going to be very competitive
Mm-hmm.
at this event. And, how it shakes out is maybe going to be outside of your control. But if we know exactly what you want to control
Mm-hmm.
and who you want to be, and we have a strong plan that, you're going to do very well.
Yeah. And McKendree doesn't do monster volume, right?
No.
Like, you guys didn't reinvent the wheel in training. I'm curious, what your approach was and what were the changes you made from her previous training to this approach.
Yeah, it's a good question. I love that question because when I first, met with her, it's like maybe the second time I had, gone and done a deep dive on her training, which is something that I do for all athletes, but for elites, there's a different level of detail here because there's usually a lot more training history.
Right.
And I can't remember how many years. She had 4 or 5 years of workout history in a Google spreadsheet, which is
Mm-hmm.
not the best way to keep track of training. FYI for you people out there, put your training in Training Peaks.
Strava, anything.
Strava is even not that good because it will bulk hours together and it's very hard to distinguish between a running hour and a cross train hour. And for a while, McKendree actually did a lot of cross training on the bike and stuff like that. And certain years there was injuries and things like that. But looking back through her training, there was a few things that I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
One was she was achieving very strong results with not a ton of volume, particularly not a high concentration of long runs, what I would typically see from athletes who get similar results and had basically done no periodized training at all.
Mm-hmm.
The coach that was coaching her before, the approach was a lot more developed speed. And there was no continuity to it.
Right.
It felt a lot more random.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, well, she's doing well with this approach. And from from a pure data perspective, it's well, she's doing well with this kind of volume. We clearly don't want to change that too much.
Yeah.
Because that there could be a big change there could be a risk for injury.
Mm.
And then if she's injured, clearly she's not going to be able to perform her best. So we need to kind of take the best parts of this approach that actually work. And then we need to refine it in a way that will work for the specificity of Leadville.
Yeah.
And I think, I looked through all the training and I looked a lot at her results and was clearly I could infer from that, likely she's highly durable.
Yeah.
This is more of a genetic trait
Mm-hmm.
than it is from the training,
Mm-hmm.
because her training wasn't training I would typically see that would produce durability.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of training above 1 hour effort pace.
Yeah.
And it was long runs that were not very long. This is not typical work that produces durability. So I could infer from that, she's naturally durable. She had one high low summer. She's won never summer.
Yeah.
Done, I think she was third at Run Rabbit last year.
Yep.
Does very well in long events. That's a talent.
Yeah.
How do we exploit that talent?
Mm.
Because Leadville, a race that's at 10,000 feet the entire time and higher, that requires that durability.
Right.
So I actually asked her, in one of our first conversations, what are your points of what do you feel are your points of friction in taking your training to the next level. And she identified like, well, I'm not as strong at, moving towards the discomfort in races. I tend to take my foot off the gas and make it feel a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's really, an interesting like insight, especially considering, she's won some really hard.
Right. She had set
ultras.
the previous course record at high-low.
Right. Like, which is really incredible. The other thing that like, I think we identified was like, what were the possible leading causes of that? Well, like one, it was the mental game. How do we work on that? Second was the training didn't support her leaning into discomfort. Like all of her previous...
if you never practice it in training, it's going to feel way harder on race day.
Totally. So like the training wasn't stretching her enough. And so that to me became like, okay, that's the major focus.
Yeah.
How do we stretch her enough in a meaningful way that will, allow her to really lean into the discomfort at the race? And that whole process started like 5 months ago. Like she had other races that she was doing. She was doing shorter races, which was cool because then we could use them as opportunities to work on certain mental tools and ideas. Like these ideas, one of the things that we also identified was her pacing discipline wasn't as good as it could be. She was often starting races
a little spicy,
too fast, and then having really big like declines in pace in the second half of races. Because it's like, wow, if we immediately fix that, she's going to be exponentially faster.
Right.
Well, conversations around that, create way of being around that. And she, to her credit, I mean, and this is all about her actually executing on the things that we talked about. I don't want to understate that at all.
Right.
Like she went and did that at every single one of her dress rehearsals leading up to this. She raced Aspen backcountry under fatigue and was still able to do it.
Yeah.
She raced the Leadville Marathon under fatigue and still did it.
Yeah.
So like she really took the reins on that and followed through, which is really cool. I mean, it's so fun to coach somebody who
wants to be like, here's a weakness, like let's move towards it.
Yeah. And I think that really showed on race day because she was 34 minutes back. That's a significant gap at 52 miles into 100 with a really difficult climb and section of the course ahead. Like she actually finished this race nearly an hour faster.
Yes.
Than the second place woman.
Yeah.
She only slowed down by 8.25%. Which is
really amazing. That's extremely impressive data.
It's unbelievable execution.
Yeah.
I mean, that is...
Because what would you say is typical for an elite in terms of degradation in a 100? Is it like...
Yeah, it's like 10 for... It's
like 10 is
10 to 15%.
I would say 10 to 15 is... It is amazing for a 100, especially at altitude because of the compounding stress.
Totally. Like the less you degrade, the better you often do.
Yeah.
And so we really had a good strategy. We talked about okay, pace cap.
Yeah.
We used numbers.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest things was, McKendree set her goal for the race. She's like, I think I can run this in 1930. And then I went through the data to see if we could actually qualify that.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the data to help athletes calibrate race goals, I usually like to look at IF and average pace and gap pace on long efforts. What do you like to look at? How do you crunch those numbers?
I do the same thing. I look for those heuristics, whether it's, what IF do you think we need to run this race at to achieve a 19-hour, 30-minute finish?
Yeah.
What is our pace per mile? And then, how are we doing this in training? How close are we to doing this in training? Have you done this in past races? What IF, have you? And one of the real challenges actually with working with McKendree was she didn't have any past data and training peaks.
Right.
So, then, you don't have some of those numbers to look at. Like you really have to extrapolate from Strava files and pull things in. But that's the kind of detail that you need. And like, why do you do that? Well, it builds self-efficacy for the athlete. Like if they can see examples of where they've done that or similar, then they're going to believe much more in the plan.
Right.
And it's not going to become this thing that's like, that's a dream. I hope I can do it. I believe I can do it. It's going to be like, no, that's reality because of like these three key, things that we've seen in training. And this data shows that. I think one of the biggest things is like, well, if we're going to run 1930 and that pace is, and I'm spitballing here, I don't know, like 1150 pace or something.
I think it was 1144.
Okay, 1144. Like,
not that I'm like obsessed with other people's sweat.
I'm just obsessed with data.
I'm a coach. I'm a McKendree fan.
Yep.
Count me in the McKendree fan club. I'm going to get my girl splits going.
Totally. I mean, those are great splits, but like for her, that's really, really, really like low in zone 1.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a average pace per mile that she can hold for a very, very long time because it's not aerobically difficult.
Right.
And so when we look at that, that is very important to recognize. How far up in zone 2 is the pace for a race? How far in zone 1? If it's a marathon, what percentage of VO2 max am I running? All of those things need to go into that and then have to be relayed to the athlete in such a way that it helps them build trust in the plan.
Right.
And she had a lot of trust in the plan because when we were running early, she was totally relaxed.
Yeah. She was like, I could be going faster. And I am choosing not to.
She said that to me multiple times. She's like, and I remember her being like, it's crazy how fast people are going. Don't you?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
This
Play
is
your
correct.
hand. Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just really cool to see something like that come to fruition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the different elements that she put together to have that, it wasn't just the pacing discipline. It was, she undertook training that pushed her in a different way. She did her first ever training camp, 3 back-to-back long runs. She did, to my knowledge, like the biggest weekends she's ever done.
Yeah.
In training.
It still wasn't huge and shows that you don't need like crazy volume to succeed at this distance.
100%. 100%. And it was more not really about the total volume as much it was how the volume was concentrated.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think that is something that athletes often overlook. It's like, well, if I want to, really prepare for become more durable, a way to help work on that is to train with higher fatigue levels. That's really risky. But at the same time, it's very necessary.
Right.
If you're not training under fatigue and every run feels like rainbows and unicorns, you're not going to be prepared to lean in at mile 70 and pass 3 women who also want to eat your lunch and win the race.
Yes.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So she got uncomfortable and had to manage that. And one of the ways in which we did it was there was a lot of recovery during the week and a lot of volume
on the weekends
relative on the weekends. And that's an approach I use more and more with athletes of all levels in order to help them balance the necessary volume to like practice running higher percentages of the total race volume over a couple days. When they do that, they feel more confident.
Yeah.
But you do have to be at a certain level to do that because it's also challenging when your running is disproportionately longer on the weekend than it is during the week.
Right. Right.
Like for an athlete like McKendree,
who's got a full-time job. She's an executive coach, if I'm not wrong. She's a boss.
Yeah. I mean, she does. She has a demanding schedule and other things that are important and interesting to her in her life that are, competing priorities. Like she balances this with other things. And, you always have to take that into account. Like she may never need to run 100-mile weeks to be successful. It might not be necessary. She's obviously has a lot of physiological gifts.
Yeah.
But I think the success was about like, how do we really lean in and strengthen those gifts closest to the race, so then she can exploit that for herself on race day, and she did just that.
Yeah. So maybe what are our final Leadville takeaways here from DNFs, wins, everything in between?
Oh man, I think you should just hold it loosely. If you DNF, it's all right. It's part of the game. Not every race is rainbows and unicorns. I feel lucky that I've had a lot of
some of them will be rainbows and unicorns.
They will.
Right?
I've had those days.
You're a big rainbow and unicorn guy.
Yeah, McKendree and I haven't sat down and totally downloaded this race yet. We're going to next week, and I know that this race was hard for her. I know that she dealt with adversity and had to work through discomfort during the race, just like anybody else would. And she did that in a really great way. And I think, what it shows here is that if you are really good at distilling things down to okay, here are the 1 or 2 points of friction that I really need to work on in my training, and then you work on those competencies pretty exclusively, you can really meaningfully move the needle. And where a lot of athletes and coaches make the mistake is they try to fix everything.
Right.
Were these the only things that I saw in McKendree's training in the last 4 or 5 years that I think needed to be changed? Heck no.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, her training was not periodized. It was not specific. There's issues there that need to be addressed, but if you really get to the heart of what is important, you can have a lot of great results. You don't have to try to fix, every little thing. Just focus on 1 or 2. We had actually talked about this a while ago in one of our other episodes, and I think it's cool to kind of come full circle and see that really materialize in a big way for an athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thanks so much for sharing. Super excited and proud of McKendree. It was awesome. such a well executed race. I just think the world of her, and I'm so excited to see her, get another really cool, recognizable moment in this sport, which is really just the cherry on top of an already extremely cool human cake.
Oh my God. Rallying to see her finish. I felt so bad, but I couldn't stop smiling.
So good.
I had just a tear come down my eye and was just this is such an amazing moment. And I could see it meant a lot to her too. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks. Hope you enjoyed this 2 sides of the same coin. Very polar, opposite conversation.
A periodized conversation.
And we look forward to being back with you next week. As always, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. Check us out on the web, microcosm-coaching.com.